Hello RPG fans, welcome to the realm of unlimited imagination. If you're like me, you love to think about what kind of character you might play next in your favorite role-playing game, but sometimes it's difficult to get those characters into play when you actually show up for a game. Maybe somebody else is already playing a similar character, or the character that you want to play really doesn't fit into the idea or the backstory that's being told for the campaign that you're in. So what I'd like to do for this channel is do guides for characters that I think are interesting, but I'm going to do these guides 3 to 5 characters at a time and in a way where we can put them all together in one team and really make that an interesting concept to look at as well. So today I'm going to go through Aziran's Aspirants. It's a 4-player team for the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rules according to the 2024 handbook that's just been published. As we get started, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. It really does help me. It helps the channel. It helps more people see this content. I would appreciate it if you could do that for me. The concept here is to do character builds and guides. There's a lot of them out there on the internet right now that you can look up. It's fantastic. It talks about how to optimize that single character, but it doesn't often tell you exactly what team that fits in, and I really want to do a good job with my character builds of making it clear where this character fits and what role it fills in a team. I think there's an opportunity to add that idea of good team building as well, so we can do 3 to 5 characters that are interesting builds that are also designed to work as a team. For pre-built modules, if your game master just wants to go out and grab a module that's pre-built and ready to go, you want to make sure that the team that you're running can really be successful, has all the tools necessary to play that module without having to constantly rethink, replan, refigure what's in the module. So in this way, the team concept might help GMs, and it might also help the players to be able to play in any module their GM picks. For new players, the idea here is we're going to start out with the characters. In this introduction, I'm already going to show you how to build the characters for this 4-person team at level 1. You can grab them and go with the knowledge that these characters could be built into an exceptional team. For intermediate game players, this could be about improving the cooperative gameplay and teamwork among the team and seeing how character synergy can really bring a new level to the storytelling. For experienced players, probably just information, inspiration for a future build. And for GMs, the idea is you really could take these 4 characters, build them all out at level 1. They're already going to have pre-made stats, pre-made personalities. You could just hand these 4 characters out to your table and say, here's the 4 characters in the party, pick which one you want to play, and let's go. So this intro is going to give the intro for the characters at level 1. The detailed guides are going to explain why those decisions are made at level 1, so I'm not going to go into all that detail here, but in the guides you'll see that, and then we'll take them all the way up to level 20. If your campaign is starting at a higher level, let's say some campaigns start at level 3, you should be able to go into the guides and quite easily build these characters out to level 3, or whatever level you are wanting to start your campaign at. The full builds will have the full detail, and each one of these characters could be played as a standalone character in any team, but the idea is that we're going to present them together as a team of characters. The parameters I'm going to use when I think through these teams, we need to fill all the roles adequately so that skills are distributed among the team. That way the GM can run anything, any module, whatever they want to do. We're going to consider 4 different combat elements for the team. We're going to consider 6 different elements of gameplay, and I'll go through those and explain what that means. We want these characters to be viable at every single level. Some builds out there look nice for like the first 3 levels, and then level 12 is awesome, but the levels in between could be pretty unrewarding to play until everything comes together at a certain level. These characters we're going to build in a way where any level from 1 to 20 should be fun to play. That's great for a campaign. It's great for a one-shot. We are going to pre-build these characters with a personality, and that's part of my creation process. Once I start thinking through a build that I want to do or that I would like myself, it immediately starts to develop some kind of personality in my mind. So I'll present those personalities just for fun and consideration. Of course, if you decide to play the character structure, you can put any kind of backstory or personality that you want. Standard combat scenarios that I'm going to consider, we have to be able to succeed in single boss combats, whether that's a dragon or some kind of high-level monster. With legendary abilities, lair abilities, those kinds of things, we have to be able to make it through that combat. The horde combat is where you have a whole bunch of small creatures, and this is where you typically want some kind of area of effect damage in your party, so we'll have some of that. Elite fights are something in between. Maybe you have some smaller characters in that fight, but there's also 2 to 4 very challenging elite monsters. For example, you could have a bunch of guards, but there's one knight captain among them and a spellcaster in the back, and those 2 represent like the elite characters that you have to try to figure out how to beat. We're also going to think about tactical or terrain-based combats, and sometimes you have a mission where you have to save a hostage, and your characters will need high mobility and the skills to actually get through that challenge in combat. Sometimes there's special movement that's needed, like a teleport to get to a certain location, or flying to fight against a flying creature. And sometimes there's combats with limitations, like maybe it's a null magic field or a wind wall that prevents ranged attacks, or maybe you're on the other side of a bridge and you can only do ranged attacks. So we're going to try to think some of those things through and make sure that these characters are prepared for any kind of combat. In terms of game elements, I've divided it up into 6 different concepts. 3 of them are combat-based concepts, 2 of them are for scouting and problem solving, and 1 of them is just the influence in the game. Now, I figure with these ratings, if you come to a table, and let's say you're joining a table that already has 3 or 4 players at it, and you want to look at these character builds and say, okay, how do I select a character that's really going to fit in and fill a good role in this team that I'm joining? And if you can learn to think through these roles, it'll be very easy to pick a combat or a character with high synergy with the group that you're joining. So in terms of combat, we're going to think of 3 things. Combat damage is just as the way it sounds. It's just your ability to deal combat damage. And that comes in 2 different categories. The first is how much potential damage can the character do? And the second is, do they have tricks and abilities that make sure that that damage is going to land reliably? For example, if your spells save for half damage, that increases the reliability that at least some damage will be done, versus spells that you cast that either work or the enemy saves and they do nothing. They have less reliability. In terms of support, that's going to include things like beneficial spells, healing your allies, and basically anything that's going to boost a d20 roll, give advantage, or give additional bonuses to attack rolls, damage rolls, or saving throws. Control is the idea that you're going to somehow control what the enemy does on their turn. Now, this could be as simple as tanking. You park your character in front of the enemy, and the enemy pretty much has to attack the character that's put there to attack. That's a form of control. Things like hypnotic pattern, synaptic static, banishment, they either subtract or control how your enemy is going to take their next turn. Sometimes you can control the enemy movement with things like spike growth, fog cloud, something that divides the battlefield and lets you fight some enemies first and some enemies later. All those are forms of control. In terms of out-of-combat scouting, that's stealth, perception, deception, disguise. It's the ability for a character to infiltrate, scout, understand what's up ahead, report back to the party, and prepare for different scenarios. Solving is, in my imagination, that's how you get through problems. So anybody can role play their way through a problem. That's completely allowed within the game. But at some point, if you have to make an investigation roll, a skill check, a knowledge check, those kinds of things fall into problem solving, or spells and abilities that affect that. Guidance is a big thing for problem solving, and for example, bardic inspiration, those kinds of things that will help those rolls play heavily into solving problems. Influence, again, anyone can role play a conversation with a noble or the local village elder, but at some point, if somebody actually has to make an influence roll with persuasion, intimidation, or deception, we want to know who it is in the party that has those skills, and we want at least one character who can do well when they actually have to roll the dice. So this team that I'm presenting today, the 4 characters, let's introduce them. First is going to be Lady Arkaan. This is a Paladin Warlock combination. This is meant to be a frontline tank that's going to also have a lot of damage abilities built into it. And it's going to be for personality, it's going to be a fearless follower of the Fae. The second character is going to be Aclea Level. That's a combination of fighter and cleric levels. And this character is quite mysterious. They're a devotee of the nature and spirits, and we're not going to know a lot about them, but they're going to be very effective in combat. Halak Level is going to be a combination of a ranger rogue, and this character is going to break a lot of stereotypes. It's going to be scout and burglar like you would expect from a ranger rogue build, but it's also going to have some spiritual aspects, some Fae aspects, and have a heavy support element for the team in combat. Tenamut Stagger is going to be a combination of barbarian and monk. We're going to use the drunken master style for monk. It's not often chosen, but I think it has some really interesting and fun role-playing abilities, as well as stuff that we can use together in this specific team for very high synergy. So Lady Arkaan, to build this character at level 1, we're going to pick a paladin. If you're going through a character builder like D&D Beyond, it's going to ask you first to pick your class. You're going to pick paladin. 2024 rules. The skills that we're going to take with Paladin are athletics and intimidation. We're going to pick human as our species. We're going to use stealth for the free skill that we get with human and the free origin feat that we get with human. We're going to pick magic initiate wizard so that we can have the shield spell. That's going to allow this character, even at low levels, to avoid most damaging attacks on a particular round with that shield spell. We're going to take the noble background. Really, there aren't a lot of backgrounds that fit this build. In the detailed guide, I'll talk through why I picked noble. Noble comes with history and persuasion skills and the skilled feat, which you can also pick up arcana, investigation, and deception. Starting stats are going to be strength. We're going to take a 14 there and +1. We're going to take 10 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 17 charisma using a +2. And that's with the point buy method, of course. When we talk about the rolls for this character, the damage on this character can be very high, but there will be some rounds where the character is going to want to make decisions that aren't based on damage, but rather tanking. So overall, we're going to give this character a 6 on the damage rating. Support, there's a lot of support spells for the character themselves within the build, as well as for other characters. So we're going to give that a 7. And control in this character, it's meant to be the party's tank, and there's a bunch of elements of control in the build. Later, when we get high-level warlock spells, we'll have hypnotic suggestion, we'll have things like synaptic static and other spells like that to control the enemies. In terms of exploration, this is not the best character. We're going to have some things that help out, but we're going to do that too. In problem solving, we're going to have some miscellaneous skills. We're not going to be the best problem solver, but having a bunch of skills at level 1 in 2024, in order to provide the help action, it says that you have to be skilled in that particular skill in order to help somebody else. So even if somebody else is making the roll, we're going to often be able to use our skills to provide the help action and give them advantage. So for problem solving, we'll give this character a 4 just for their interactions in that way. And then influence, of course, we're giving that a 7. This character is not meant to have expertise in the influence skills, but as far as it goes, they will have proficiency in all 3 of the charisma-based skills to make those rolls. So not a 10, but surely a 7. Aclea, let's talk through our fighter cleric. We're going to start out level 1 with a fighter. The skills we're going to take there are animal handling and insight. We're going to take the interception fighting style. If we're going to be a cleric and we're going to be the character that prevents damage and provides healing, this interception style is very interesting. It will allow you to reduce the damage that one of your allies takes every turn in combat as a reaction. I think it's really fantastic the way it's worded in 2024. Our species is going to be Wood Elf. We'll pick up perception skill from that. We're going to take the hermit background that comes with medicine and religion skills, and we'll have the healer origin feat. That will allow us to use med kits to help our allies in combat at level 1. So even though we don't have our first cleric level, we can already act as the party's healer. In terms of ability scores, we're going to take 14 strength, 10 dexterity. We're going to take 15 con and a +1 to make it 16. Intelligence and charisma, we're going to dump at 8. And wisdom, of course, we'll take that to 17 with a +2. When we talk about this character's rolls, damage, again, we're going to give this character a 6. In a lot of single target combats, we'll do very little damage, but Spirit Guardians are so good in 2024 that any combat that has 2 or more enemies, we're going to be able to use Spirit Guardians and really do a lot of damage. It is a cleric, so plenty of support. We'll give that a 7. It's not meant solely for support, so it's not a 10, but certainly a 7. And in terms of control, again, this character will get a lot of options for spells and abilities that will provide control. And as with most clerics, the armor class will be high enough and the saves will be high enough that we also don't mind walking into combat and being a tank when we need to be. Out of combat, this character is meant to be the mysterious stranger. So in terms of discovery, not really meant to be hiding and sneaking around. In terms of problem solving, we do have guidance to constantly help all of our allies, as well as some key skills where we can provide the help action. In terms of influence, we'll give that a 2. We're not going to be the ones making any of the party's rolls. We're a hermit. We like to stay to ourselves and not get involved in that kind of stuff unless it's absolutely necessary. Our third character, Halak Level. This is the ranger, going to start out level 1 ranger. Skills that we can pick up here: investigation, perception, and athletics. We'll take the human species. That'll get us Arcana skill, and we'll also be able to pick up the magic initiate cleric background, and that'll allow us to cast the Bless spell to help the whole party. Bless is one of the most influential spells in the game. Our cleric in this group is going to want to often use Spirit Guardians and other concentration spells that have really high impact in combat. So by having another character that's able to use the Bless spell, we can take advantage of this super high effect spell without having to strap that to the cleric and make them do it all the time. We're going to take the criminal background. That gives us sleight of hand and stealth. It also gives us the alert origin feat, which plays heavily into this character's build. And this will also be the character with thieves' tools to disarm traps, unlock doors, things like that. Point by ability scores for this character: dump strength and intelligence, leave him at 8. Dexterity we take to 17 with a +2. Con we'll take to 14 with a +1. Wisdom we'll take all the way to 15. And we'll also take charisma on this character. This character is going to be scouting, hiding, sneaking occasionally. Things go wrong. And this character is actually going to have a lot of ways to be very charismatic. If they get caught, talk their way right out of it. I think it's a fun character to build. In terms of the rolls, the damage is going to be pretty high. This is a ranged damage dealer with abilities that are meant to make the attacks highly reliable. So we expect to hit often with decent damage. We'll give that an 8. In terms of support, we're going to cast the Bless spell for the party. We also will have other support features, so we'll give that a 5. Not much in way of control. We'll give that a 1. Out of combat, discovery and solving are very good. Discovery's just about as good as it can get. We'll have expertise in all the relevant skills. We'll give that a 9. Problem solving, we'll eventually have expertise in some problem solving skills as well as influence. So we'll give both problem solving and influence an 8. So this character gives up some elements of typical damage dealing that you would expect for a really broad gameplay all across every game mode. The last character is Tenamut Staggershell. He'll start out at level 1 as a barbarian. We can pick up animal handling and athletics. Our species is going to be turtle. We'll grab survival there. Background is going to be sailor. We can get perception and acrobatics from sailor. And then we'll have the tavern brawler feat. Tavern brawler won't help this character much right at first, but later on in the build, for a lot of reasons, this feat's going to kick in and be a lot of fun to play with. Starting ability scores with the point buy method: strength 17. This will be a combination of barbarian and monk, but it will be a strength-based monk. So we'll take 17 strength right at the start. Dexterity is going to be 15. We'll take +1 there. Constitution is going to be a little lower than most people would probably expect at a 12. But we have to get that wisdom up to 14 to be able to multi-class into monk, so we're going to do it that way. And then intelligence and charisma will be 8 with no points spent. Tenamut is meant to be a combat damage dealer and controller. It'll be the highest single target damage that we have in the party, as well as really high control. The character can tank, it can grapple to move characters around, it'll have push effects with weapons, with Tavern Brawler, with all those different feats that it's going to take to just move enemies wherever they need to go. Put them together, spread them apart, tackle a caster, grapple them, whatever makes sense. Tenamut is going to be able to move and get there, deal damage, control the enemy's movements. So we'll give him an 8 on damage and a 9 on control. In terms of support, there are a few abilities that come online later, but generally the character's a 2 for support. In exploration, there will be, again, some things early on that they're okay with, but later on we'll get some better skills and go up to a 6. In terms of problem solving, not just a narrow range of problem solving for this character, but where we need survival or animal handling, it's going to be good. And then influence, we'll give this character a 1. Angry, potentially intoxicated turtle is probably not the face of the party. As these characters level up, Arkaan's going to be an interesting tank. Counter spells, damage dealing abilities as reactions, abilities that punish the enemies when they miss, punish the enemies when they hit. So it's great. You don't mind. You go into combat, you don't mind if you get hit, you don't mind if the enemies miss. If they cast a spell, you can counterspell them. If there's a ton of enemies, you can cast shield to avoid a bunch of attacks. It's really high action economy where every action and reaction means something in combat. A lot of fun. Halak is going to be the main skill character for the group. We'll also have Bless to help in combat, and we'll be able to reliably put out high ranged attack damage every single turn. Aclea is going to use high damage, high control cleric spells. We're going to melt hordes of enemies, have plenty of support for allies, reduce damage, get temporary hit points distributed around the group, things like that. Tenamut's going to be our high single target damage dealer, also going to be fine to tank when needed. We'll be able to move enemies around and set up cleave damage. Cleave is where you get 2 enemies within 5 feet of each other, and you can use abilities and skills that target 2 enemies within 5 feet of each other. And that indeed is going to be the signature tactic of the group, is going to be to move enemies close together, and everybody's going to have something to contribute if you have 2 enemies within 5 feet of each other. I also, in the detailed builds, I'm going to give a reason for grouping. All of these characters have a tie into the Fae Spirit Aziran. In terms of role-playing, this is just a suggestion. It's fun for me to think about these things ahead of a group. But if you're a game master for a game like this and people are creating characters, you can also just say, build me a backstory. Everybody has to have some tie into this powerful Fae named Aziran. You tell me. Make it up. Be imaginative. So you don't have to control the backstories, but I have seen in groups that it's very fun and rewarding if there is some common element among all the characters that they have a reason to be together at level 1. You could also role play that out and make it happen, but for a lot of groups, especially groups that are newer to role play, it's better to have that reason already established so that it's not awkward or clumsy for the first couple sessions. And then I think if everything goes according to plan, after I do the individual detail builds, I'll also do some combat strategy tactics and show kind of how this group will work together at common levels like level 4, level 6, level 10, and just kind of demonstrate how all of the group abilities work together. If there's a 5th person at the table, if it's a 5-person party instead of 4, the 5th character would love to be a wizard. That brings an intelligence-based character into the group, gives a lot more support spells, as well as area of effect damage for higher control. Lots of utility. Wizard of any kind would fit great in the party. And if the 6th character were to join, I would say any good single target damage dealer is fine. By that point, you have all the bases covered, and you can play any character you want. That's going to wrap up my introduction to this team of 4 characters, Aziran's Aspirants. Please remember to leave me some comments. Give me feedback. Let me know if you think this is a great idea or not a great idea. I'm always curious to hear what people think. If you've got tips, tricks, suggestions, things to make it more entertaining or more useful for players and GMs alike, give me the feedback. I'm going to try to do a few of these, and anything that you guys tell me to make the next one better is truly appreciated. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please remember to hit that like button on the way out if you didn't hit it on the way in. It really does help me and help this channel and helps more people see this content. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I certainly would appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.